Access to secondary education is an imperative for social development and economic growth. Yet, governments are struggling to meet the rising demand for secondary education, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where there are enough school places for just 30% of children of age to enroll, according to the latest edition of the Global Education Digest. Accessibility is lacking when learners cannot attend an education center for instruction. It is also lacking when learners cannot participate in an educational experience, whichever mode it is offered. The growing demand for governments to ensure equitable access to ensure secondary education is a challenge, particularly in developing countries. And without drastic action from all role players, secondary education will remain a distant dream to millions. While open educational resources is not a panacea for these challenges, it certainly holds the promise of offering part of the solution. Some distance learning teachers describe the new development in OER as creating 200 classes of one student. The Commonwealth of Learning, through its Open Schooling initiative, stepped up to the challenge to broaden access to secondary education by taking advantage of the promise of OER. In 2008, and in collaboration with the William and Flora HEWLETT Foundation, we embarked on a very ambitious initiative to develop open educational resources for open schools. By engaging teachers collaboratively across the borders of 6 countries, OER in 20 school subjects were developed. CALL endeavored to bring new technologies and collaborative tools to teachers in developing countries to address the challenges they are facing with regard to good quality education and the effective integration of technology in the classroom. This initiative combined professional development of teachers with the development of OER. The OER will be available in multiple formats to suit as wide a range of users as possible. The Moodle version of the OER makes special provision for learners who are visually challenged to use accessible devices. 2 of the print-based subjects has been translated in Braille and DAISY formats, respectively. CALL hopes that the free sharing of these OER can change the plight and quality of life of learners who have been limited to access basic education. We have come to the end of the process and will launch the OER for open schools in the Seychelles on March the 2nd. While we can confidently say mission accomplished, the question that comes to mind is, what next? Having successfully completed the OER does not guarantee that countries will automatically implement it. It also does not mean that countries who are lacking learning resources will automatically adopt it. This initiative has shown that there are many barriers in the development and adoption of OER, and paramount amongst them is the lack of knowledge and understanding of OER. Frances Ferreira said, "We make the road as we walk it," and I cannot agree with him more. It is therefore no coincidence that CALL used an incremental approach of learn by doing throughout this process. When we embarked on this road, participants on this initiative did not necessarily have the knowledge and understanding of OER. However, over the past 3 years, they were and are now able to acquire and apply it. Developing OER is an iterative process, and it needs leadership, it needs drivers and ownership. It also needs participants to be open to critique and open to development. Through a well-defined strategy, CALL worked with ministries of education and open schools to encourage the spread and the use of the learning materials and methodologies developed in this initiative across the Commonwealth. The 6 institutions and the faculty members and teachers have learned how to build the OER road by walking it, learning about Creative Commons, licensing, instructional design, Moodle LMS, and integrating media through face-to-face and online workshops. They have used different platforms such as Basecamp and Moodle. Members were introduced to social networks, and CALL has initiated the OER for Open School Facebook page as well as the Open Schooling Connect platform to provide a mechanism to sustain the momentum of a community. An integral part of this initiative was its evaluation. Participants, for the first time, were confronted by external evaluation reports which measured their own development and the quality of the open educational resources at different stages of the process while they were working in a community. Now it is time for them to broaden the road by persuading the remainder of the open schools to join them on this road and to take every advantage of what OER can offer. However, We cannot leave that to chance. As we know, one of the strengths of developing OER is the pertinence of the community. I am pleased to say that at the time of making this video, an online workshop for open schools is underway for the open schooling community. Calls Open Schooling Initiative engage the Commonwealth of Learning Open Schooling Association members to collaboratively develop an OER policy framework for open schools. The discussions will culminate in a face-to-face workshop where participants will finalize the draft of the first OER policy for open schools. And the completion of the draft framework will coincide with the launch of the OER for open schools materials on March the 2nd. While we continue to build the road, we have to ensure that we have a proper map to guide the way. In celebrating Open Education Week, allow me to congratulate the teachers who participated in the OER for Open School initiative. This is a world first, and I'm pleased that we could share our pride to raise the game for OER across the globe. Through OER, universal secondary education will one day be a reality and not an illusion.